All right, so let's get started with live number 2 in series 2, Ideas for Collaboration. So in this series of 6 lives, we're going to be digging deeper and deeper into the concept of collaboration and how we can keep our teams motivated to work together. So last week, we talked a little bit about this topic, and I said that this week I would be giving you some very specific tips and tricks that you can use in your environment today, if you want to, on how to help your teams collaborate. So I'm going to give you 3 different strategies. If you have some other ideas, I would love if you post them in the chat, and you can always look on my LinkedIn profile and our blogs to get additional ideas. So today, we can't cover every possible collaboration technique, but I am going to give you 3 different techniques that you can use today because they don't require a lot of setup, they don't require special tools or any technical knowledge. So the first one, I ask people when they are going to set up a call with me, what are some of the things that are really getting in their way of collaborating or feeling connected? And in 2020, when people that don't normally work virtually had to go to a remote virtual world, the top answer I get is that people don't feel like they have the camaraderie or the collaborative spirit that they have when they're in the office and can just pop by each other's desks. So how do you create that environment? There are teams that I have worked with that have never actually occupied the same physical space, and I have never occupied that space with them either. So how did we stay connected? How did we build those relationships? Well, one of those was we created a kind of communicative, collaborative culture of our own, not to replace what happens in the office, because you can't just try to plug and play situations and recreate the same feeling or sensation. But what I encouraged them to do was still do the same things that they would do when they would come to the office. So if you go to the office, you say good morning to people, you go and get your coffee, you ask how somebody's weekend was, you have all of those social interchanges. And people were feeling that when they went virtual and were working in distributed teams, that was lacking. Well, you can have that same kind of touch base or check-in if your team uses chat. So one of the things that you can encourage people to do, and you can do this by modeling your behavior the way you would want other people to do it, is always say good morning when you log on. So often the first thing we do when we get in front of our laptop is we connect all of our tools and devices that we need for the day, and that includes chat. Oftentimes it's also set that we can just automatically have those tools start up for us when we log on to our device. So when your chat opens and you're ready to go for the day, say good morning to everyone. Now, that does not mean send 50 different individual good mornings. We use our group chats for that. So say good morning. Ask how somebody is. If you're talking one-on-one, just don't dive right into the topic. But say your good morning. So you as a leader or team manager can model that behavior by always saying good morning to your team when you get logged on in the morning. The next thing that you can do is encourage people to share their experiences. So if they're going to go grab a cup of coffee, post it in the chat, grabbing a cup of coffee, or going for lunch, and then take it one step beyond that. I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee. Anybody want to come with me? Now, that sounds silly maybe on the surface because you aren't going to all go out together to the coffee shop. You probably don't even live in the same zip code. But what that does is, okay, everybody, let's take a 5-minute break from what we're doing and actually go get coffee or tea or a beverage of choice and come back. And sometimes we would even do a little video chat and have our coffee together. But just that act of sharing your experiences brings people closer together. You can do the same thing at lunch. I'm going to go grab lunch. Anybody want to join me? Or I'm having a sandwich today for lunch. What are you having? And just create those exchanges for lunch as well. And then really important, at the end of the day, make sure that you sign off by saying goodbye or good evening to everyone. And that does several things. it's a courtesy to say to people good night, because that's what you would do if you were in the office. You wouldn't just sneak out. Well, maybe you would if somebody was trying to find you to do work, but you would say good night. Do the same thing when you're signing off your computer, and it's even more important when you're not physically in the same space, because that signals to everybody that you're no longer available. So again, model the behaviors yourself, and then the team will start picking them up. If you need to, you can make it part of your team work agreement. So saying good morning, talking about when you're having breaks, inviting people along for lunch or your coffee break, and saying good night. The other thing that I encourage people to do, and again, this could be part of your team work agreement, is let the team know when you're stepping away. Stepping away for 15 minutes. That means you're not going to be in front of the computer, and you're not going to be able to respond to messages. It may be because you're in a meeting. It may be because you're on a call. It may be because you just need a break. But it's a courtesy to let everybody know that you're stepping away. And then if the tool that you're using has an away status, use that so people are aware of what you're doing. But by doing these little things that seem kind of silly or innocent, we are able to create a more collaborative spirit in our environment. So that's number one. Say good morning, ask how people are, say good night, and check in. Number two, there's a group of techniques called liberating structures. And I'm sure many of you have heard me talk about these before. If you have not gone and checked out liberatingstructures.com, or you don't own the book, I recommend that you do so. And I don't recommend that you use all of them. They don't fit for your particular environment. But one that I use quite frequently, and that I talk about when I do a lot of these lives or workshops, is called 1, 2, 4, all. Those are numbers. The number 1, the number 2, the number 4, the word all. And here's how this works. If you have something you need the team to talk about, you ask everyone to jot a few thoughts down on a piece of paper or their device of choice on their own. Give them a few minutes to think about it on their own. You could potentially send it out ahead of time if you want them to put a lot of thought into it. Then when you get into your virtual meeting or in person, it doesn't matter where you're located, you pair people up and you say, okay, today we need to talk about this topic. Talk together and share the ideas that you came up with. And then, after you've given them some time to talk in pairs, put 2 pairs together. So you have 2 groups of 2 for a 4. And let them share the ideas that they came up with. And then ask that someone from that group be responsible for collecting the ideas. If you have a really talkative group where nobody's going to feel uncomfortable sharing them out loud, then you can ask the spokesperson to share to the rest of the group, so the entire group. If you have a group that's a little more hesitant about speaking up, then you can use collaborative space such as a whiteboard, a Jamboard, whatever tool that you have, and have them type their ideas in during their breakout time, and then discuss them as a group. If it's something that you need to narrow down the list, so you had to come up with a list of ideas and you need to narrow it down to which is the most popular or which are the top 3, then you can use voting. And there are lots of different ways that you can do that. But 1, 2, 4, all allows people to come up with their own individual ideas, then share in smaller groups so that they don't have to feel like they have to blurt something out in front of a larger audience where they might not feel comfortable. So again, check out liberatingstructures.com if you haven't already. And 1, 2, 4, all is just one of the 33, I think there are now, different liberating structures that you can use. And some of them are quite simple, like 1, 2, 4, all, and some of them are much more complex. And they talk through different scenarios of when you would use those different collaborative techniques. So that's my second tip, liberating structures. The third one is something that I talked about as part of the team work agreement session, and I'm going to bring it up again today in a different context, and that's using a concept called constellations. And the idea is that you position yourself in the universe where you feel comfortable. So I might say to you, red is my favorite color. And if red is absolutely your favorite color, everything you buy is red, your room is red, all your decorations on your desk are red, then you would position yourself the closest to the center of the universe. And if you absolutely hate red, you own nothing that is red, you don't ever like to see it, you've been traumatized by all the red pen that happened on your tests when you were in primary school, then you're going to position yourself as far away from the center as possible. And we talked about that for the work agreements and finding out how people felt about different topics. But you can use it on a daily basis to get a sense of how your team is doing. You can have everybody in the morning after they get logged onto the chat and say good morning, go position themselves on the board with how they're feeling. Center of the universe, I am on top of the world, nobody's going to bring me down. Edge of the universe, I'm really struggling today, and can you guys maybe not jump all over me? So use that as a way for people to kind of plot where they are, and you can have them move themselves around on that board during the day. And if you aren't working in a physical space together, again, you can use a Jamboard or a virtual whiteboard such as Mirror or Mural to do that for the team. So those are my 3 ideas for today for collaboration. Really simple ones that you can walk away from this call and implement right away with your teams. So let's do a quick recap. The first one is using common social courtesies. Good morning, I'm going to lunch, have a great day. The second one is checking out Liberating Structures. And I introduced you to 1, 2, 4 all, but there are 33 different ones that you can use. And the third one is using the constellation concept to help people let you know how they're feeling to do check-ins. And if you find somebody is constantly on the edge, you maybe need to do an individual check-in with that person and make sure that they're okay. So those are the 3 tips for today. We are going to be continuing with the evolution of these topics of collaboration and communication for the next couple of lives through the beginning of October. If you have other ideas of things that you want us to talk about in the lives, please let me know through our social channels. Also, if this topic interests you and you want to dig into it more deeply, I'm happy to do a strategy call with you. I do 4 of those a week for free for people. And finally, if this is really, really interesting to you and you are totally tuned into collaboration, then check out our new program, Power Up Your Team Collaboration, that is starting here in a couple of weeks. All of that information is on all of our socials. So if you're connected with us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or our website, you can find all of that information there. And I will see all of you here next week for live number 3 in series number 2. Have a great day, everybody.